What's going on? I really wanted to do a video for this yesterday, but you know, the synchronicity of me releasing a big, fat, juicy Sephiroth video last night. Check it out if you haven't yet. A nightmare walking theory that will fundamentally challenge and test the very timelines of the FF7 universe, up and down it, from Seto to Marlene to Vincent and Lucretia, and by default with Hojo as well, Sephiroth's own backstory. Like, for me to do that, and at the exact moment I release it, we find out the trademark Forever Crisis, the continuation of the naming scheme. No, AC, BC, DC, CC, Dirge of Cerberus, Crisis Core, before Crisis, Advent Children. They've done it, along with First Soldier as a small little tag to it. So First Soldier, and I also believe they've done is it a new, make sure I actually get this correct. I don't know if it's a new logo, a Shinra Electric Power Company logo, or if we can see it. This article I'm looking at has got the logo. It looks the same to me. I can't read kanji, so I don't know if it's different. Someone let me know if the logo is different, but this feels freaking huge, man. Massive. The compilation of the universe continuing, and all last night my brain was awash with what could this be, what's most likely, and it's going to be really hard to pin down considering before Crisis Core was just a derpy little mobile game. I say derpy, it was actually decent, the story was actually pretty juicy. Now then we had Crisis Core like on just the PSP, so I'm thinking, could this just again be like a little Nintendo switcheroo type thing? Square Enix have been saying they want to work closer with the Switch and FF going into the future, more than just ports. So I sort of thought that. Then I thought, well, we had Advent Children, maybe we're going to get bloody another movie. We're going on FF15, Kingsglaive, CG sort of release. Potentially the most unlikely one, I think, is probably going to be like an anime. We did have like The Last Order, a little animation series, but we did have Brotherhood for FF15, and that went down a treat. Or perhaps this is a just straight DLC to the remake. Maybe it's a second game alongside the remake, like a mid-range game. Or it could just be the naming scheme for the next part 2. They've said they're not going to call it remake or just part 2. I kind of thought like Rebirth would be the most fitting for the second, especially because I do believe we're going to see a rebirthing of the characters' backstories. And as I'm so convinced that this is the direction we're going to go, we suddenly get a trademark of First freaking Soldier. Now, of course, Sephiroth is the first soldier. He was the first Genova experiment, or the first successful one. And that's the thing. I think, like, perhaps, is it possible? Well, first of all, I'm going to say I really do think that this is going to be a Sephiroth-centric story telling, because it just makes sense, especially for newcomers to the series at this point. And anyone who's just playing the remake for the first time, they have little to no context on who Sephiroth is, what the backstory of this FF7 universe world is, what is Mako, what is Soldier, what's a G cell, what's an S cell, who's Ghast, who's Hojo referring to, when he's talking about the scientists that he's competed against and stepped over. We really have little to no context to any of this. New players wouldn't. So it really makes sense to me that they're going to try to create something that will supplement and go alongside the remake, to really sort of give that chunk of story and explanation to new players. And not just new players, I even think for us old fans, because what we got to remember, and I covered this in my video yesterday, the compilation is being used, but it's not canonical. They're completely changing up the canonicity, and like Nomura was the one to really stress this. It's all going to be getting broke. It's all going to be getting retold, restructured, and that's why I think that we could even start seeing a new Origins, slightly, like especially with the new Shinra logo. It makes me think but the previous to this, I'll link these videos in the description below. Check them out. I did a reincarnation theory where we saw two Midgars, two distinctly different Midgars. How as we'd crossed into what I keep using the word world line. Some people don't like world line. I personally don't like alternate timeline. I think neither of these terms are really applicable to how the life stream works. It's like a book with all recorded memory, and we're kind of having alterations made in this happening that is very separate to OG. Yet at the same time, OG is fundamentally still a part of it all, because again, that's how memory works in FF7. It all sort of supplements each other, and that happens, I think we've got the evidence, in a very cyclical fashion. And that's what I could see First Soldier being. Maybe we're not just seeing First Soldier in terms of Sephiroth being the First Soldier, though I do think it would lead up to that. Maybe we could even see the experiments that led up to that section. I start even thinking like, damn, could we even start going back to some of the Cetra region, like flashback sections? Now, let me know, and I'm actually calling out to you guys for this, if anyone knows in the lore, because I know with the Cetra, and we definitely saw it in the VR in the remake, that they had a lot of parallels to modern day Shinra. They had airships, we saw the 8-pillar structure that kind of mimicked the reactors, and I always think back to the story of when Genova first crawled out of the northern crater. She went up to the first Cetra village, observed them for a while, and then started taking on the forms of their loved ones to drive them insane, the calamity that came from the sky. And I think there's a lot of hints that the Cetra, prior to this, creating the first proto-material, which I believe is the filter on Terra Corrupt, that's what got removed. That's why Genesis and the Spheres are such an important ideology to this. I could definitely think if we're going First Soldier, Sephiroth backstory, Genesis has to play in somehow. I know some people hate the freaking poety boy, the gift of the goddess. Everlasting. The wind creeps silently across my delicious succulent apple banana juice. I know some people hate him, but I definitely think if we're going to be getting a deeper look into Sephiroth, Genesis and Angeal are such a fertile area where there is still a lot of mystery that we do not know everything about. And if we're going to be going into Sephiroth's story when he was whole and complete, and again, I start thinking to Edge of Creation. In FF7 Remake, Sephiroth and Cloud, when they fought each other, Sephiroth referring to himself as Ori. Ori wasn't a term that he hadn't used that term since Crisis Core, since before Cloud somehow threw his ass into the Mako, and Sephiroth, to survive and not dissolve into the life stream, he had to strip away everything that was unnecessary. Kind of did like a Sauron, only his hate and his will to dominate all life remained. He had to strip away all the other assets of his personality, and to see him now call himself Ori again, it makes me think that this is about Sephiroth trying to become whole once more, and that could include this power over destiny, as I covered in yesterday's theory video, not just to test the other characters' backstories, but vicariously by doing that also restore his own backstory, and yeah, I think that could include Lucretia. I agree when someone said, I don't think Sephiroth at this point really cares who his mother is. I do think, yeah, Sephiroth has become like this whole other being that is far beyond basic mummy issues. But what we could see is, because we have to think of how trippy this gets, that there could be multiple Sephs at this point. There could be the OG Northern Crater one, and that this Sephiroth perhaps does interact with his past Sephiroth, to, I don't know, keep himself complete while at the same time dismantling, all of what Sephiroth would consider weak. His compassion, his care for his friends, and maybe we start seeing like a battle of old good Seph. I don't want to say good Seph, that's a loaded ass freaking term, but nuanced Seph who wasn't a completely evil bastard. We did see that he had some care. Maybe we see that Cetra encounter with this one. I don't know. I'm just purely speculating, man. But quickly going back to the Cetra, we definitely know that there were machine life forms. Machine is like an integral part of the live stream. I think there's even an explanation in the story that condensed Mako and live stream actually does become machine-like constructs. That's why we have the weapons and whatnot. But did the Cetra ever create soldiers of their own? I feel like in the back of my mind, maybe I've heard that before. Even if that doesn't exist in the universe, maybe the first soldier could date back to even the Cetra trying to infuse life stream into soldiers' bodies, and that's whatever Crisis sort of means. That this is a continuum. It's always happened up and down the timelines. It doesn't matter what point in human history you go to. There's always been this crisis between destruction and rebirth, of gaining power and progression and strength, and at the same time ego and hubris and war and division, and that, you know, that always leads to these empires collapsing. The idea, the philosophy that all empires eventually, you know, fade and self-destruct on themselves. I think that could even be really cool. Ooh, I'm just looking at the comment section for this. I love what someone's just said. AC, Advent Children, Before Crisis, CC, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, DC, Ever Crisis, EC, FC, Final Crisis? Final Crisis could be. But yeah, I definitely think we're going to be getting like parts of the compilation recontextualized to us in terms of what they mean within the remakes, sort of restructuring of the narrative. And we pretty much have a confirmation of this in an interview with director Tetsuya Nomura and Kitase. The two had multiple things to say about the remake and its place in the FF7 compilation. Kitase said that it's actually been in existence for a very long time. This is a previous quote, by the way, not necessarily for Ever Crisis, but Nomura went on to add that we developed the compilation of FF7. The installments included AC, BC, CC, DC, Dirge of Cerberus, so we knew we wanted to make a 5th installment. They knew they wanted to make one. Nomura also said that they were short of resources as he was the only one heading the project, therefore leading to it being postponed. But here's the good bit. So additionally, Nomura being Nomura, he had something to say about the term remake. Nomura being Nomura, I feel that so strongly. Remake being attached to the latest installment of the compilation. In another section of the translated interview, Nomura mentioned that remake has another meaning. Fucking of course it does. The remake, the remake, the chi-make. It must be. It has another meaning that he cannot answer what that meaning is right now. So yeah, that's pretty much like Nomura saying this Ever Crisis is tied into what the remake truly means. And again, I think if you go and watch that theory video I did yesterday, that's what I think it means. You know, everything that I described about the characters detaching from their previous OG selves, and you know, this new fate for all the characters being recarved, these new backstories, these new directions and new tests. And like I said, I love the idea that it sort of seemingly is positive when we first go into it, like Nanaki perhaps saving Seto, walking in his boots back when the G tribe attacked. I like what somebody said in response to that, like, what if Seto was actually a coward and it was from like this past timeline, like transmittance of Red, that his father actually gained courage from Red's strength. And so it seems like it's positive at first, but then it turns nightmarish and like Ever Crisis, like Zack coming back. We're so happy about it. You know, after the whispers dissolved over Midgar, we saw that happened throughout all of time and space. You kind of believe like what Ray Kaufman said, there is that even if there were like caveman standing there at that point, or if you was to go to like the Before Crisis timeline or the AC timeline, everyone would have sort of seen that happening throughout time. And that, yeah, the Ever Crisis is crisis being formed all throughout time and space now. Shit! Oh my god. Things are escalating real quick. That's what I get the sense that the entire point of this could be. It's just mad ass escalation. I really hope it's not a mobile game. Please, I don't want a shiting mobile title. I mean, I'm just thinking about like, you know, Kingdom Hearts has the mobile title, you know, Union Cross, and that it kind of really does supplement like so much extra important succulent ass lore for the Kingdom Hearts universe, especially like Dark Road that recently came out and the latest patches to that, and it's doing so well in like, especially in like Japan, and because it's got so much important story attached to it, and like the mobile department really is such a flourishing multi-million-pound business for Square. I'm like, god damn, are they gonna do this for 7 Remake? Ever Crisis gonna be a mobile title, it's gonna have really pertinent remake details, we're gonna have to fucking play it to get that. I really don't want that to be the case. God damn, I don't. I think what I'm most hoping, leaning towards, is like a DLC. Maybe it is the second title's name, or something like a movie, like a CG-ass movie. In terms of quickly finishing this video, what holes exist in the FF7 story that could really do with feeling from something like this. Again, not only do I think the whole Cetra section, and that we could tie that into like the first Soldier Ever Crisis, the cyclical stuff, and learn more about the really like roots lore of FF7, I think that would be dope. Bringing in the relationship of Sephiroth and Jill and Genesis with a spattering of our Zack boy. I saw some person say that they hope that this is like after Zack has taken Cloud to Midgar and like what he was doing behind the scenes. I don't know how that would tie with, because Zack's not exactly the first soldier, but maybe Zack is diving into like trying to redeem Sephiroth, like diving into Sephiroth's backstory, trying to find a redemption outcome for Seph. I certainly think when we look now at like Stamp being the mascot for Shinra, and the rebranding of Shinra that we've had, and Stamp is so associated with Zack. Stamp's sort of seen as like the propagandist mascot for joining Soldier. Maybe we get some sort of weave in that. The other thing is there's a really cool sort of like break in the timelines in terms of when Shinra first discovered the Northern Crater. They first discovered Genova. They weren't sure what it was. They incorrectly branded her as a Cetra. And at this point, President Shinra wasn't quite a dick cheese yet. And I certainly think that because that was the date that they moved. If you watch my Rufus Shinra, Why Can He See the Whispers theory, they altered the age of Rufus Shinra. They made him something like 3-4 years older, and they moved his birth date to the date that the Shinra scientists first went to the Northern Crater. Now, considering President Shinra has had bastard children with Evan Townsend, for example, with Annette Townsend, who was a receptionist who worked in the Nibelheim mansion. She became a failed clone. What? And like, there's this whole association of like these scientists back before like even the creation of Hojo, who were doing like these experiments on fetuses, feti, homunculi, and then we start tying in like the mechanoids and all of that sort of stuff. Like, so there's a lot of like weirdness to it. I could even start seeing something like real trippy. Like, we suddenly followed this dude who we don't really know. He's like some blonde ass dude who was actually the first soldier before the Sephiroth one. The Sephiroth went on to be like the poster child, brought up from a young age. But what if there was a man before that? And what if that freaking man was Cloud's fucking dad? And that's why Cloud had the power before Mako enhancements to pick Sephiroth up and throw him. Because again, I don't know if Cloud's father needs exploration, but it certainly is a big ass gap, and how that ties in with Rufus Shinra having this sort of affinity with Cloud. And when I say affinity, is not only do we have that break in the timeline there, at the same time that Cloud at the Water Well decided to go to Soldier, told Tifa that he was going to go join, the exact same month, not just year, the exact same month, Rufus Shinra disappeared after becoming vice president. He goes off the scene for a year, and we never hear what happens during that year. It's like a message from Song during Crisis Core that he's just gone. And Evan Townsend, the kid's alright guy, he's investigating his mum at this point. He gets drawn to Nibelheim, and then you even have like Lazard Viscarius, who's also another half bastard child who is also like drawn towards the entire soldier program. He becomes the head of it. I don't know, there's a lot of Nomura-esque mystery, or something that Nomura would potentially dive into that potentially we could get. But there we go, guys, that's my total ass hypey ramble on what we could be getting for Ever Crisis. Check out those theories, man, especially the one that I did yesterday. I feel like that really does have a nice tie. And hit that subscribe. Your boy is nearly at 100k pitchforks, 100k peasants. Once we get there, man, we're gonna have some real power. Yeah, Square gonna recognize me. I'll be able to push them for new games and new trailers. Empower me to empower you fans. Yeah. Man, these comments. FF7 is the remake sequel. It's a requel. Yeah, man, it's a sneaky remake sneakquel, this time including elements from the compilation. We've already seen a few from the game already. Yeah, man, I feel like we've definitely had stuff teed up for what this could be. Reunion, Rebirth, A, B, C, D, E, FF7. If it is a CC remake, get rid of Genesis. Fuck you, man. Jacked is not happy. I don't know, I really think they should. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let your imagination run free. Could be goddamn anything at this point, really. What type of game or medium would you like to see it? And what section of the FF7 story do you think it should tackle? Until the next video, Kupo!